Here we go. Welcome to the Global Black Caucus Power to the People podcast. I'm Angela Fobbs, chair of the Global Black Caucus, and I'm here with my two favorite people today, Adrianne.
Hey, what's
And it's a great day, Adrianne, sort of, and Ben.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going. Your day's not the best day, but we'll
Right.
get to all that over time. So Black History Month is over, and I have to say, I thought it was a really good one this year. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, it was really everything, like I'm so happy that so many people participated as in the events as far as creating them and also attending them, and just basically it was just really super. Now we're on to Women's History Month and Democrats Abroad.
Black history for a second? I was going to say I was really, I think the region that really showed out for me was AP, Asia Pacific.
Oh, yes.
Didn't they like show out? I'm like, what?
They did. I mean, they had at least 4 events.
Mm-hmm.
There was the poetry event that China put together. There was the guest of Andrea Young, Andrew Young's daughter. She is also the president of the Georgia ACLU. We had a film showing, and there was something else. What am I forgetting?
The book discussion.
The book discussion. That's right. Oh my God, that one in India was so awesome. I'm sorry I missed so much of it because it started. Did it start? It started with a meditation.
I heard it ended with a meditation because I was on for 2 hours, had to go to church. And then I heard I missed the closing meditation.
Yes, it was awesome. I felt energized. Like we did this little 2-minute meditation, and I felt like woo at the end.
It set me up for the week, and that's how it started off. And that was a great when you're going to get a heavy discussion about a book like Caste. You've got this, and then I'm so glad at least you got the closing meditation.
Yeah.
But every region did a great job, but I just wanted to give AP a shout out because a lot of people don't necessarily realize that Black History Month is celebrated globally because Americans are global. We're everywhere we are. And I do know in Europe that in October it's celebrated in the UK.
It's actually EU wide. In October is Black History Month.
Wait, I didn't realize
I didn't know.
So we could do something again in October. So anyone in the EU, you got something you want us to do for Black History Month in October, let us know. And actually that's one of the longest months of the year, right? 31 days. So that's encouraging.
Yeah, in an election year, it is not long enough. So, but on the alternate year, it's very long. So yeah, I just found out last year that the EU had a Black History Month. So, which I think is super. Good on them.
Yeah, I knew UK and Germany, but I'm glad it's expanded, and we'll make sure to celebrate that this year as well.
We'll celebrate that in a little bit more toned down way. No, we're not gonna.
I don't know about that.
Okay. Well, I mean, maybe we won't have 80,000 events, and
okay. I see
yeah, maybe we won't have an event every day. Maybe we just have 2 or 3 during the month, because it would be nice. It would be nice to learning about history and all these books that, I read 4 books this last month. So it was a real experience for me, and I really enjoyed it. I don't know. Did you see the thank you video I made, Ben?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you saw it.
Yeah, I saw it. I think I looked at it on Facebook.
Yeah. That this has been a great month, and really, what I would like to do, and I kind of would like to get you guys' opinion about this, is I would like to have a spades tournament, but online.
Yeah, I would love to do that. Yeah.
Remember? Oh my gosh.
I'm just always afraid, sometimes, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but sometimes I feel like I'm a little too black for a lot of people that are hidden Democrats abroad. I know, like you're like, no,
No,
Angela, you're
no, no,
not.
no.
But
I feel the same way sometimes. We're gonna talk about that today. I feel the same way sometimes.
yeah.
But yeah, I would like that. I am not good at spades. Every Christmas and every Thanksgiving, I go home and the family gathers around the spades table. I am always lit up because I suck at spades so bad.
Well, you have to
And
practice.
yeah, so I got to practice. I definitely got to practice so that I can go home and challenge my cousins and stuff with
Yeah, you got
spades.
cousins that love playing with you. They like Ben's coming.
No, they always like Ben's coming. Who's gonna be his partner? And I'm like,
Oh my God.
If one
Yeah.
cousin will take it for the team. That's true.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe Angela will have you ready for spades this year. But
Yeah. You just need a good partner that
Right.
can understand whatever your weakness is and compensate for it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I love playing spades. And I mean, I grew up around people having card parties and, in the summertime sitting outside, playing cards. And yes, it's been a long time since I've had a real good game of spades.
Yeah. Have you played the card game Wizard actually? Do you
Mm-mm,
know it? It's a
mm-mm.
card game I only learned about here, but it's extremely similar to spades.
Oh, interesting.
And I was actually surprised because like for me, like spades is like that's a black people game. You know what I mean? Like I've never met white people who play anything like that. But
Oh,
then like all of my friends here play Wizard, and like I'm playing Wizard like every now and then with my friends, and like it is so similar. It's so extremely similar. Every round
hmm.
you have to predict how many books you're gonna get. There's only a certain amount of books, or there's a certain amount of books in every round. I guess you can play on teams. I haven't played with an even number of people that we did play on teams, but like we were all playing like individual. But yeah, and there is a wizard that's kind of like in spades like the Joker. That's the highest thing. And so you have to like you have to like look at your cards, figure out how many books you can get, and look at how many wizards you got, and
Oh,
all that
well,
kind of stuff. It's really cool. Yeah,
that does sound like spades, but
yeah.
if it's white people play spades. Like if you're around a military community,
Uh-huh.
people play spades. Everybody plays spades. So
Okay.
yeah, my first husband was a Marine, and he played spades. He was stationed in the Philippines for a while, and he played spades like he was black, and
Yeah.
he wasn't. So like,
What?
yeah, very cutthroat,
Yeah.
very very cutthroat. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird that I've been married to two men that were in the military. Like,
Mhm.
why? How did that happen? I'm like, no war.
Right.
Like, I'm married to soldiers. Or yeah. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we will have that spades tournament. I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure it out now how
are we
we do it online.
Mhm.
are we recording?
Yeah,
I
we're
Yeah.
recording. Did you not hear me say welcome to the
know,
podcast?
but then I thought we lost it. So we're recording. So I'm
Yes.
here
Yeah.
just laughing in the background. Like you guys are cracking me up.
Yeah, well, we can have some fun. Everything doesn't have to
Yeah.
be so serious all the time. I mean, everything around us is serious.
Mhm.
Like the pandemic, these crazy people who are um who just can't give up on the idea that Donald Trump is not going to be made president. Like they
Right.
it's like I mean, okay, it is a cult, but it's like one of those cults where they're expecting, the what do you call that when God
Oh,
like
like the
beams up
doomsday cult.
everybody, you
Yeah,
know?
these doomsday cults.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're kind of operating like that. Yeah.
yeah,
Now they
and
say March 20th is the new date for something to happen. I'm like, okay, whatever.
yeah, like whatever. It's not going to happen. Like you can, but they just keep switching the date. Like, oh, we weren't
Yeah.
raptured today, so we're going to be raptured in 2 weeks. Like just accept that Donald Trump lost the presidency. I saw something. I saw, how people are always. I mean, people make posts, and there was a post. from some conservative person, and it was like, don't believe what they tell you. We're not 30% of the population. We're 70% of the population, and we support Donald Trump. And it's like, really? Why do you
Right.
really? Come on. Really?
Right.
I'm always shocked at the delusionalness of people that love Trump.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, I don't know. I like to think that there will be something at some point that will get them to see the reason, but you know, maybe not. I'm trying to make peace with that fact. Oh well.
I just wish, I mean, I know, you know what? I don't think there's anything that's going to happen. Like the information is all in front of their face, but they refuse to accept it because he says it's not true.
Yeah.
And I don't know, if you just believe, I don't understand it. I'll never belong to a cult because I'm just, I mean, first of all, I know this might strike a lot of people kind of crazy, but I'm not like a loner, because that's not it. I love being with people, but at a certain point, like I'm just not gonna do something because everyone's doing it, like we're all, it's like what your mom used to tell you, you're gonna jump off a cliff just because everybody's doing it,
Right.
like there's
I
gotta be
mean,
a,
yeah, like I think people don't realize that like to be a part of a cult or like even like this type of cult of personality that Trump has created, it takes a lot of faith. It takes a lot of faith in someone like Trump. And I think that's the thing. Like, I'm not the type of person who really has much faith in anything. I'm not really religious because I don't, but the idea of believing something without evidence or in spite of evidence is like something that for me is very much against my personality. Like, I
yeah,
just don't believe in things without evidence. And so, like, the idea of like a cult of personality around Donald Trump, like, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, that's asking me to put a lot of faith in a person, and I just don't have faith in any person like that, you
yeah,
know?
And that ties
Um,
into like your pet peeve for the day, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah. That so today we were gonna talk about we were just wanting to have like a decompression session, mainly because I have a lot going on and didn't have enough time to really like prepare an actual theme. But I did want to give us as well just kind of some time to kind of decompress and talk about issues around like our blackness or black culture. And so we all have like different issues that we're going to talk about. And the issue that I wanted to talk about basically, I guess I kind of call it pedestaling and like the creation of these kind of like Messiah or Moses figures in Black culture. Like the thing that I really, really hate is when we put people on huge pedestals and we kind of treat them as if they are like the saviors or that they have some sort of knowledge or capability, skill, or whatever that is kind of like the key to our success, liberation, equality, whatever type of thing. And like I said, like I'm just not really the type of person who puts faith in individual people like that. Anytime that we've had any sort of progress, it's been that progress has been won by like hundreds or thousands of people. There has never been one single person who's had one single vision that has made anything happen for us. And so I know that we have these nice stories like Dr. Martin Luther King said he had a dream and Harriet Tubman, like ran on the Underground Railroad. And like, yeah, these people had visions and they did certain things, but they were not the only ones there. And not all of the things that Martin Luther King did were like the best things. I mean, he should have done a lot more in certain other areas. And granted, he was assassinated before he could, but I don't like kind of putting people on pedestals, especially because it makes it really difficult after these people leave us to like
yes.
criticize their legacies. And that's like a big, big thing that I think is extremely
It,
dangerous.
it's also, it also makes you, it's demotivating for other
Mm-hmm.
people because no one can be Martin Luther King,
Mm-hmm.
like, but we could all do something,
Right.
but so it kind of takes away people's incentive to, you know try to make
Yeah.
progress because they're
It kind of
not
makes it
this famous person.
right. It makes it hard. Like if you're not, like you said, Martin Luther King, it's like, okay, well, where do I start? Because like Martin Luther King, we know him for doing all of these like grand, amazing things. but we don't really talk about so much how he got started, or we don't really talk about all the other people around him who helped him, who kind of helped do stuff in the background so that he could do these grand, amazing things.
Yeah.
And we also, like, I think that it also puts a lot of pressure on those people. I was on a Facebook post some weeks ago. It was a Democrats Abroad Facebook post, and someone talked about how Stacey Abrams is like the savior of our democracy for 2020. Because if it weren't for her work, then we wouldn't have won the two Senate seats in Georgia. And while that is true, Stacey Abrams is nothing but a human being. She is an
Right.
amazing, she's a wonderful, talented human being, but she is a human being. And I'm like, and I even commented, I said, like, it's really important that we continue to humanize and not put this person up on a pedestal, because imagine how she might feel if people are talking about her as this like grand, amazing savior, and like, oh my God, Stacey Abrams, she did something that no one else could. And it's like, well, I don't know. I feel like I would crack under that pressure. I don't know how she feels. I've never talked to her. And it's not to say that I don't think that she deserves recognition for what she did. It's just, like hailing her as some sort of like superhuman
Yeah. I mean,
elections god is weird to me.
yeah. I mean, it could have, things could have easily gone another way, And so would
Mhm.
we have blamed her then,
Right. I think that's
Like,
also like the other side of this is like when like we do this because like when things go well, we want to like, give people their due and give them their props. But like the other side of this is like when someone has such a huge role in some sort of change, and then things go bad, then we're like, oh, it's because of this person it didn't happen right. And I don't think that that would have been true if we hadn't have won Georgia. It would not have been the case that, oh, because of Stacey Abrams, or it's Stacey Abrams' fault that we didn't win Georgia. No, it would have been just the fact that it wasn't enough.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't like to heroize people either. It's, you know, because I think that all of us are capable of doing something incredible.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, do we want to? Do we have the opportunity? That, but I think everybody has the ability to do something incredible. You just have
Mm-hmm.
to put your mind to it. Like if that's, and then on the other hand, some of the stuff that people want to do, like, I mean, if you look at, we were talking about Donald Trump, we can go back to him. Like he did something incredible, but it
Oh,
was
I
bad.
cannot go back to him. I'm really not giving him a
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. We won't go back to him, but
moving forward unless yeah,
that's
yeah,
fair.
but
But yeah, I think that another thing that's dangerous about it too is that like when we talk about kind of how this intersects with like race relations in the United States, when people see a black person, especially black men, but also black women, as we saw with Stacey Abrams, when people see a black person who is becoming influential, who is becoming successful, who is making some change in our society in some way, I think that this gives white people kind of an out in our society. It's like, oh man, like I can love and I can dote and I can speak all my praises about the Stacey Abramses or the Maya Angelou's or the Barack Obamas of the world, and I can show people that I care about black people and I'm not racist without doing actual anti-racist work. Whether it
right.
be like volunteering or organizing, or whether it be like the personal work that you should be doing in your personal life, having difficult conversations, calling people out on their racist behavior, all that kind of stuff. And so when you heroize these people, you kind of put the burden of your work that you're supposed to be doing onto them and not taking the responsibility yourself.
Yes, that is true.
when I got my when I got a master's in public communication, one of the things we talked about was like different archetypes that are very American. I don't know how unique they are to America, but
Mm-hmm.
like the Messiah figure is one, and we love that when we look for our leaders in our
Mm-hmm.
Messiah figure, because who's going to save us? That's one reason George Bush, some people say, got reelected. Um, because who's you're not going to vote out a president in the middle of a war or whatever. We need, after 9/11, we needed somebody to save us, messiah figure, or so that's very American, and not necessarily unique to the African American community, but it seems like we take everything that's American and then African Americanize it, if that makes any sense. So, and then I can see what you mean, but I kind of look at these heroes as kind of like gateway. Then, okay, great, gateway. You know who King is. Then, like you said, then who was his team? How did he didn't operate in a bubble? It's like a place to start talking about some stuff. And I don't want to necessarily say for white America, but I don't know if they want us to have any heroes at all. But the ones that they have given us are the ones that we learn about in school. We're not creating our curriculum. So we can kind of maybe change the idea that, we're all heroes. The heroes are in our neighborhood, the everyday heroes, that you see, that you probably saw growing up, whether it's your teacher. How do we define heroes? You know, so we can take that and use it to empower us in ways that you think that it may be lacking now. Like if it, because that's very American to have a messiah figure. And I can remember the ones, we love rags to riches stories. People thought Jimmy Carter was this poor farmer. To be a farmer, to be a successful farmer, it takes money. He wasn't dirt. But the same thing with Clinton, poor guy from Arkansas. We love these rag to riches stories. Same thing with like Barack Obama. He was like, we love these rag to riches stories. We love this them versus us archetypes, in the States. I remember when Serena and Venus Williams first came in, it was like them against the whole, Women's Tennis Association. People were like, they don't socialize, they don't talk to people. So I think that we need to take these archetypes and make them work with us. Because, our heroes are other people's villains, and we can't, we need to take, but you're right, a lot of people get left out of history because we only decide we can have so many heroes, I guess. So we can change that paradigm. Like, what would you do? Like, if somebody came back to you in that post and like, well, what do you mean Stacey Abrams doesn't deserve to be celebrated? Like, how would you expand it? I know you talked about it a little bit. How would you expand to have a constructive conversation with that person, particularly if they were a white liberal?
Right. I guess one thing would be like, it's not that I'm saying that she doesn't deserve accolades and the accolades that we're trying to give her. I think that that's true, and so I want to be clear. Like, I'm not sitting here trying to say, well, like Stacey Abrams didn't really do nothing, or Martin Luther King didn't really do nothing. No, they did. They did a lot, but it's just this idea of like they did something so unique and so amazing that no one else could have done it. Well, I don't know that no one single person could have done what they did, but when we really think about it, they as single people, they were not the only ones doing this to make their changes happen, right? And so what I would say is like, well, let's look at the whole entire environment and this movement that Stacey Abrams created, right, through Fair Fight. And let's look at this organization and look at all of the stuff that they did in the background. Look at all of the policy work that they did over years. Look at all of the people, the different and I got a master's in public administration. We call them stakeholders and stakeholder groups. Let's look at all the other stakeholders that she was able to like create coalitions with and look at the work that they did. And so it's a much bigger kind of like more policy analysis kind of framework type of thing that I'm thinking. And I know that every American doesn't have the time to just sit here and do like massive policy analyses on everything that goes on. But I think more so just being able to widen your own personal scope and be like, man, Stacey Abrams is amazing and she did this great thing. Who were the people she was talking to? Who's the person who's next to her and all of her press conferences? Is there someone next to her in all of her press conferences? Who are the people that she's writing with? Who's the other people on the website? When we go to Fair Fight and figure out who are these other people, and let's learn about them and let's lift their voices up as well. And figure out what work and how she really put together this network, and then we can really see how, not just continue to see how amazing she was, but how amazing this whole entire coalition was, and then get a better framework when we talk about recreating progress, or when we talk about like, like making new changes, like she's going to solve one problem, but there are other problems that need to be solved, then we already have a framework where we can go to and be like, hey, Stacey Abrams did this way. How about we try and take that same construct and apply it here? You know what I mean? And so I think that is how I would want that conversation to go.
Yes, that's, yeah, what Adrian said is right, that everybody is a hero in America. Like we've read too many comic books, we've seen too many superhero movies or whatever, and that we're all just waiting for our opportunity to, I don't know, be a hero, except most people don't really do anything that's heroic, but you can. I think it's really important that everybody know that they can do something that's going to make a difference, and
Right.
it's just a matter of figuring out what you're interested in or where your passions lie, and then go ahead and do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think there's also another danger to this that I want to talk about. That, again, I'm not saying that Stacey Abrams or Martin Luther King are representative of this, but there's another danger to this that I have heard and see, especially with like Black entertainers. People like Oprah, people like Jay-Z, Kanye as well, Ice Cube, like Beyonce, even this kind of what Adrian was saying, like this rags to riches story. These people come from nothing, and then they, through their talent and their hard work and their fortitude, they become something, and they become these super influential, like figures in America and Black American culture. And all of those things are true, that these people have worked hard and they're super talented. But then I think that there are some of them who they begin to identify more with the place that they have reached
Right.
than from their home, the place from where they've come.
Trying to
And
say
I
they forgot where they came from. You being nice,
right,
they forgot where they came from.
right. And like I've talked about this, like when we talked a little bit, kind of scratched the surface when we talked about my criticism of Black capitalism. And like part of my issue is like, when rich people become rich, especially like or not especially, but even when they come from poor or humble beginnings, like it is super easy for rich people to begin identifying with themselves and with their identity now as rich people before they identify with anything else, right? And I'm not
Yes.
saying that they only identify that way, but like, we saw it in Ice Cube's, contract, that like his contract, other than the police reform stuff, was very heavily, business focused. Why?
Yes.
Because Ice Cube has become this successful business mogul. And that's fair for him. Fine. He's done that, but that's the world that he sees now. Right. But that's not the world that I live in. That's not the world that Angela lives in. That's not the world that he grew up in. And
Yes.
so it's
But
really
let's
difficult.
update. When you mentioned it, did you all see that the House passed some stuff that we were talking about that was in his contract? What was it?
Yeah, it was,
HR1.
Yeah.
yeah. The I can't
But
remember the
just to
name of the
say,
bill.
Or the People
yeah.
Act.
Yeah, the For the People Act, right?
But just to say, so things are moving along, so that's good. But please continue, Ben. But I just wanted to,
Yeah.
because sometimes we feel like nothing's happening, but things are happening.
Right, right. And that's true. I don't want to say that like nothing is happening. What I'm speaking about right now is really just kind of an archetype of how certain people, or how people tend to exist in Black culture and how we interact with them. But like I really when I look at Jay-Z, and I think of like kind of how he talks about things, he also, like Ice Cube, talks very much in this kind of like, like, well, I started from the bottom, and I know that some people, like, not everybody has everything that I have, and but like, I think that it's important that we invest in Black businesses, invest in Black people, and it's all through this kind of like, well, this kind of like very capitalist lens. And I'm like, well, when you have nothing to invest, and I understand he would probably say, well, I also came from where I didn't have anything to invest. I'm like, okay, fine.
But he
Someone
also
gave you
did crimes to get money.
right. Right. I'm like,
So,
but that's the thing. I'm like, but you know how this goes. And I'm not saying that Jay-Z is against criminal justice reform. He seems to be very for criminal justice reform. But like, I don't know. My impression is how he interacts with that as this kind of billionaire. I think they're billionaires now, Jay-Z and Beyonce. This kind of billionaire business mogul. it's not that it's insincere. It's just, for me, it's not as close and as, I don't know, heartfelt in some ways. You know, it comes off as very Black Republican. He actually has a song called Black Republican, by the way. Um, and I don't know, that's, to me, is that's not as helpful as it should be or as it could be. Um,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
not, because you don't have to be a millionaire or a billionaire to be happy and have a good life, you know? And I'm not saying that people should not strive for the highest, but if, let's just say you came from, the bottom and you made it to the middle, you did a good job. you
Hmm.
know you're not There's nothing wrong with what you did. Not everybody's going to go to the top. And but in our society, in order to have value, you have to be at the top, basically.
Right. And I think the other thing I wanted to point out for that too is, like, and I am gonna have some people coming after me for saying this, but like, Beyonce, I have never been such a huge fan of Beyonce. I recognize that she is extremely talented. I recognize that she works hard and she deserves all of the accolades that she has. But I have never been someone who's been able to, like, personally, like, I've never been someone who's personally, like, kind of identified or related with Beyonce, because I feel like she is so different from what I kind of understand, and maybe it's a bit unfair. I don't. It
I don't
might be
know,
a bit of
but
an unfair
I
criticism, but
see
like,
some bees flying around behind you.
right? I know.
So
I
I don't
know.
know.
I'm like riling up the beehive right now.
Yeah.
Um, but here's what I want to say. It's just that, like, I think that when you become this successful, and it's not their fault. You know what I mean? Like, it is not Beyonce's fault that to be successful, especially to be a successful Black woman, that you have to fit into a certain mold that the society wants you to fit into. That is not her fault that that mold exists, and that is the way that society wants her to fit into. But like, it's kind of like, well, you can't really, think of like the most powerful or the most influential Black women entertainers that we have. We've got like Beyonce, we've got Cardi B, we've got Nicki Minaj, we've got I'm thinking of also like Viola Davis, Octavia Spencer.
Right.
Uh, like, you can see these kind of archetypes that exist, right? And the ones who get the most positive press coverage, the ones who get the most, like, accolades in newspapers and magazines and all those things, are the ones who fit into this kind of shell that's like, this is what the successful Black woman or successful Black person should be. And we will, and the society says we will accept them as a successful, like, as a Black success story, and then we will then make this person kind of the measurement of what everyone else, like every other Black person, should be. And so if you're not like existing like this, like the Beyonce or like the Viola Davis, then there's something wrong with you. But if you exist as the Cardi B or as the Nicki Minaj, then you're going to get negative press, you're going to get talked about negatively, when those women are also extremely talented, are also extremely successful.
Yes.
But how we talk about them, or how our society wants to talk about them, is very negative, because they're more outspoken about certain things than, Beyonce or Viola Davis. And that's not the fault of the women themselves, but when I'm talking about like how we put people on pedestals, like kind of the archetypes that we create to fit people into these pedestals, is also really problematic. And then for the public at large, it's kind of like, well, we're kind of subconsciously taught, well, you need to act and behave and do and be this way, not that way, you know.
Yes. Yes. Adrian, you're very, very quiet. You don't want the beehive coming after you?
Because I was, wanting to let Ben say his thing, and I was going to ask him who, you don't have to be a Beyonce fan. I don't think that that's a criticism. I don't think Beyonce expects everybody to be her fan. Um, and just like, who would you compare to that would be the not the anti Beyonce, but like, to make your point, like, if Beyonce was one thing, who would be the other one? Or maybe you're saying there isn't someone else because they don't fit an archetype.
No, I'm saying that like if Beyonce is one, we can look at Cardi B as the other side, right? As kind of like the other end of the spectrum, where Cardi B, she I believe was a stripper or
Yeah.
exotic dancer before. She has very openly spoken about like issues between her and her ex Offset, and like some people would describe their issues as quote unquote ghetto or like blah 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 blah. And I'm like, this woman is just out here living her real life. Like, yeah, she was a stripper, but like that was how she made her ends meet, and she was good at what she did. um like Beyonce wasn't a stripper, but Beyonce also had a different life that Cardi had. And again, I don't think that Beyonce would make these same criticisms about Cardi. So it's not the fact that I'm saying that like Beyonce herself believes in these archetypes. It's just how society is willing to accept them and engage with them. You know, it's much easier for Beyonce to get positive press and much easier for Cardi B to get negative press because of how one, their histories as individual people and how they engage with the public. If you remember, go back to when Jay-Z, when we all found out that Jay-Z cheated on Beyonce, it's kind of like the whole world was like, how dare he, you
Yes.
know? But then when we find out that Offset cheated on Cardi B, I feel like a lot of people in my circle were like, well, she should have known, or like, why is she with him? And I'm like, that's not her fault. Like, you know what I mean? Why are we
Yes.
blaming her for that? Like, I'm not gonna blame her for what Offset did to her, but we're not willing to blame. I don't want to blame Beyonce for Jay Z. I don't think that we should, but it's a different standard.
Yes, we hold lots of different types of women to different standards. It's a, I don't know, I mean, that is misogyny.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's
Right,
sexism. Like that,
right,
okay, this woman, well, she used to be a stripper, so, well, what do you expect?
right.
And then, Angel, our Angel, which I mean, I like Beyonce. Please don't come after me. I love Beyonce just as
Y'all
much
can
as
come
anyone
after
else.
me. Y'all can come after
don't
me.
don't come for me.
leave Andrea.
I,
Excuse me. Leave Adrian and Angela out of it.
I,
It's my
I'm
fault.
I'm a
Yeah, quiet
fan.
as hell.
Say what?
I said you see him quiet.
Yeah, like I'm a fan. I love
Yeah.
Beyonce.
I like Beyonce. I have the utmost respect for her, and I think it's not that I don't think that she produces good, like content or music or anything. It's just I don't relate to it. That's simply it. Um,
Okay, so since we're just like I if I didn't realize, like, up until a few years ago, I was like, I wasn't sure, like, oh, how much do I like Beyonce? I heard about this, beat between Rihanna and Beyonce,
mhm.
and which one is better and blah blah blah. And I like them both, but I have to say, I think I like Rihanna. I like her music more.
Oh yeah, I love Rihanna's music a lot. Well, I think I relate to Rihanna's music a lot more. Rihanna is also like a good example. Like after a lot of this is what we're talking about. Like is really the issues of sexism and misogyny are really behind it. But like if we remember as well, when all of the issue like crap happened between Chris Brown and Rihanna, at first who was the like who did our society like kind of direct its anger towards?
Yeah, it was
It
Rihanna.
wasn't Chris. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was Rihanna.
which was
You
some
know,
bullshit.
right?
Like, really, I swear, you know what? I just can't listen to anything that Chris Brown is a song that he's in
Yeah, I
now.
haven't
I
listened to
can't
any
do
of
it.
his music since, but
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm like I think that happens a lot because when you don't fit this nice kind of all American, mold, I think that our society is like, okay, well, screw you. And the reason why these kind of like these kind of archetypes and this kind of pedestaling is toxic is because like I remember growing up, like as a black kid in mostly like white America, like in the white suburbs, being told like what like you shouldn't like oh man like rap music and like hip hop and R&B like it's so it's so bad. Like all of the rappers, they're all really like they're all just talking about like effing women and blah blah blah. Like there's no real artistry to it, and like what, like there's no good rap music. And I was so embarrassed to like enjoy rap music in this kind of white society. And so I
Wow.
ended up like really, really turning myself away and like really trying to force myself, like suppressing like this kind of desire or like love for rap music that I had. And like not just rap music, but a lot of Black culture. I remember like friends telling me, like, oh, yeah, it's really cool that you don't sag your pants. And, and I don't even think that sagging your pants is like an element of Black culture, but like they marked it as that, like they understood it as that. And so they have, this kind of archetype of what Blackness means because of who has been like elevated to these positions as like the heroes and messiahs of Black culture. And there's a whole lot wrapped into that, especially with the music industry and how the music industry works, and who gets record deals and who gets fame and recognition. But like ultimately I felt like I had to repress what I felt like was Black culture, because all of the archetypes, all of the people who were put on pedestals were people that the white kids around me were making fun of all the time. you know
Wow.
and so that's also another danger, like I said, like maybe not put so much weight in these like kind of these cultural heroes that we have, or like it's important to have your own heroes and to look to people for inspiration, but know that like that these people don't have to define what the American experience is or should be.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I that's really interesting. I didn't grow up with a lot. I mean, I went to high school with a lot of white people, but I didn't necessarily grow up with a lot of white people around, in a neighborhood. I grew up in a neighborhood that was part white, part black, but
Mm,
I lived on the wrong side of town and in the working class side of town, so it's a little bit different. I didn't grow up in a fancy neighborhood where I had to be, I don't know. I'm so glad I didn't, because I wouldn't have made it. Like I just wouldn't
yeah,
have made it. I was, yeah, but I don't know. The idea of denying yourself like who you are or what you like, it sounds very oppressive, you know
right,
like you really, yeah, I'm just glad you're free now. So
yeah, yeah.
I'm glad you are. I don't know, my what I'm working for, what is in the back of my mind all the time, is that I want everybody to just be able to be who they are,
Mm,
whatever that means, and if you want to dress a certain way, if you want to listen to certain music, if you want to do certain things, as long as you're not like hurting people, I think it's
right.
really okay. Yeah, I don't know, that just seems like that would have been really hard to deal with, and I'm not sure that I could have done it. So, like as we said earlier in our pre-conversation, what doesn't kill you does make you
Makes you
stronger, even
stronger,
though even though it that expression just makes me mad. No, when
right?
somebody says
Right.
to me, like,
It's not a very comforting expression. No,
no,
it is
no.
true, but it's not very comforting. But yeah, so that's my rant. It's like stop putting people on pedestals, because I think for a lot it puts a lot of pressure on them. It sends the wrong signals to other people in society, because it sends the signal that like this is the archetype of who Black person or Black man or Black woman should be. And anyone who doesn't fit into that archetype doesn't get the recognition or accolades in society. So it's important that we recognize what the good that people are doing and the work that people do, but let's stop Black messiahing people. We don't need a messiah, we don't need a savior. We just need people who are willing to do work.
Yes, that's right, and that could be any of us. There's no one coming to save us. We have to do it ourselves, and that doesn't matter what your age is, race, economic group. No one's coming to save you. Like you're
Right.
gonna have to do some work. Like,
And white people, let me speak to you specifically. Stop telling me how much you love, Lizzo and Cardi, or any specific person. Stop telling me how much you really appreciate Stacey Abrams and she should have been like vice president. that all may be true, but that does not absolve you from getting your ass out and doing some work too. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm tired. Yeah, great, but like that, I still want to see your report card and what you've been doing. You know?
Yeah, that's true. Everybody has to do the work. Nobody gets nobody gets a pass,
Right,
especially not today, because we're
right.
not today.
Especially not today.
Well, that's a perfect segue into my rant.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
go for it.
Yeah, my rant is, yeah, basically, no, I'm not giving white people the passes anymore. All the passes have been distributed and they're fucking canceled too. Excuse me, and they're canceled.
Yeah.
So here's a notice: if you were a pass holder, that is expired, and no new passes are being issued. They're canceled, and that goes from everything like, why are you trying to touch my hair? Why did you just touch my hair? Why
Mm-hmm.
are you even asking me about my hair? Why is
Mm-hmm.
my hair fascinating to you? Um, I'm sick of the microaggressions. They have got to stop. Now, this is coming from, I don't get the same microaggressions when I'm in on US soil. We could talk about that's different, but I'm going to talk about like a black woman in Europe. No, no more passes, no more where did you come from? And I say American, but America, no, but where did you come from? Where did you really come from? Or like, where did your parents come from? Or like, oh, and I can't believe how thin you are because black people are fat. Or
Mm-hmm.
What?
fat. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
or oh, the articulate stuff, or you're so smart stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, let me calm down like that because I do have.
Yeah, don't give
No.
yourself like a little mini stroke or something. Just
Y'all can jump in because you all have been victims, I would imagine, of these microaggressions. Again, I think that
Yeah.
Europe, we experience different stuff in the States. I can talk about that, but like we spend a lot of time in Europe. It's different what I get in Europe, and it's like, damn, how much education do I have to give you? Like the white people in the States, I can remember when I was at camp and the guy asked me though, could I touch my hair, a little afro? And I remember, yeah, and I remember him saying, wow, it feels like cotton candy. And I remember thinking, what did he think it was gonna feel? But I can remember being as fascinated with the white girls in our cabin as well. Nine, me and Eleanor Swearinger, my best friend at the time, we came, together. This was a camp. I remember it was vegan, and we went for the horses. But I can
Mm-hmm.
remember she used to grease my scalp and braid my hair, and the white girls were like, "What are you doing?" And oh, we're like greasing our scalp, and they're like, "Oh, our hair would be so greasy." And then we see them in the morning with their greasy hair. You know how their hair looks before they wash it. So, but that
Mm-hmm.
was okay when we were 9. That was a safe. We were curious about each other. We did it. I'm grown people. If you didn't have that experience at summer camp, I'm sorry, you're not going to get that experience with me. I'm not your first
Right.
time anything. I'm not going to be your first black friend. Maybe I am, but I'm not being your first black cultural experience. I'm exhausted. You can do the work. There's a volume of stuff out there. Go to the Democrats Abroad Global Black Caucus site. Don't we have reading materials for people that were doing?
yes, the racial equity challenge is still up there, so you can take part in that right now if you want. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
that,
I have
that
to.
thing can go 365 days. That was not a time limited thing that you missed the boat catching on that. And,
Right.
y- you know, but yeah, Ben, what were you going to say?
No, I was just gonna say, like, I have to 100% agree. Like, I do think that the microaggressions that I experience here are different than the ones I experience in the U.S. Although I do experience them both, you know. And I have people ask me sometimes, like, "Oh, is racism better or worse in Europe?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's not better or worse in either place. It's different, but like I tell people, I'm like, I think I am more used to dealing with racism in the US than I am here. And so I get more angry at it here than I do in the US, or I get angry at it faster here than I do in the US because people here refuse to even consider the fact that they might be racist because people here are like, oh no, I'm not racist, I'm not a Nazi. And I'm like, the Nazis were not the only racists. You don't have to be a Nazi to be racist. Like, yeah, and they assume that racism has to be an intentional act. You know, I brought up a conversation about implicit bias a few years ago in a work meeting at my institute, and like none of my colleagues would like accept the fact that like implicit bias was a thing. Well, one of them did, but she was even kind of like, yeah, I just don't know how prevalent it is. I'm like, of course you don't. You're,
What?
you know, but like I'm just like, yeah, like implicit bias like exists. And they were like, yeah, I don't know, like we don't think so. Like, and I'm like, what like why do we even have a term for it if it doesn't exist? Like whatever. But like
Hey, Ben,
the
you're right, and that and you see, you just gave me the perfect example of why I'm like, no, I'm not even gonna have this conversation because you get so riled up. You had a
right,
cocktail. Somebody wants to have this. All of a sudden, they want to be the one talking. The enlightened person that wants to talk to the African American in the room. That this is their chance to ask all those freaking questions that they never had a chance to ask before. Before it was about Trump and all that stuff and the elections and stuff. And then once they work through that, then they're like, "Ooh, I'm actually talking to a black person." You can see that register, and then they verge, and that's when you're like, you know what? No. And just like you said, they don't want to hear, Swedes don't want to hear about racism. They don't
mhm,
want to hear about, they have very good PR, public relations, and Sweden is not a bad country, but this, I haven't been anywhere where it's not racist or sexist or something effed up for me,
right,
right? So I don't do that. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not doing, so no, I don't, I'm not, I got to figure out, well, once COVID opens up, not when COVID opens up, when society opens up past COVID, and I'm back in these situations, these social situations, you guys help me get some skills. Like, I'm not going to be like Ben. You're the educator. You're the intellectual. You're so nice. And you're like, well, of course it exists. Nazis weren't the only. Why do we have the word for it? Blah, blah. I don't even have the energy to have that kind of conversation. So do I just say, oh,
mhm.
excuse me, I'll be right back? My
Oh
mother,
my God.
it was on silent ring. Like, what do I do? Because I'm not the one to educate you people. I'm not the one.
Mhm,
No, I'm not going to even be the one to flip it over and try to talk about Swedish societies, the ill of your society. I'm not even going to play that game.
mhm.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah,
my. I'm like, I'm not the person. I'm not the one.
I, I I get that, and like that's something that people should understand too, is like being in that position, like as a black person, when someone is asking you about it or when someone brings something up, it is so much energy to like call someone out and to like find the courage to like be like, hey, actually like what you said was problematic or what you said was hurtful or racist or whatever. Because like I feel like to do that effectively, I have to coddle their feelings in doing that. You know what I mean? I have to be like, I know you didn't mean any harm. I know you didn't mean to like be offensive, whatever. But actually, what you said was like very offensive, which means I have to not think about my feelings and center their feelings first. You know, which
Wow.
is so much work. That is so much work, and that's the first thing I want white people to understand. Like when we're having these like difficult conversations, you should not be expecting black people to take on your feelings, the burden of your feelings and your white guilt about this. That is an unfair thing to do. So to have the audacity to expect us to explain why something is offensive or why something is problematic when the internet exists, um, it's not okay. And there are going to be situations where there's going to be like differences of opinion among black people. Let me tell you, as a white person, what your job is. You need to realize that you have a type of privilege that we don't have as people of color. Your job is not to decide what side of the fence of the controversy you should be on. I had this very experience with somebody who decided that he wanted to get dreadlocks, or not dreadlocks, but cornrows. White dude in my girlfriend's friend circle who decided he wanted to get cornrows, and he like his thing was like, oh well, like some of my friends who are black, they're cool with it. I'm like, yeah, you will probably find black people who are cool with it. I'm not cool with it. I have no respect for it. I think it's cultural appropriation. I don't think it's okay. And he just kind of was like, well, like some black people are okay with it. And I'm like, you don't get to decide what's right or what's wrong when there's a controversy. We need to have a meeting as black people, fine, whatever. But you don't get to decide what's right or what's wrong as the white person in the situation, you know?
Wow. Okay. Well,
Sorry, I feel
I
like I kind of took your rant, Adrian, and
No,
went
no,
with
because
it.
no, that's the thing because and my rant's your rant, your rant's my rant. I knew
Mhm.
that I wasn't alone, because it's not like one of those things you're making it up in your head. I know I'm not alone. Um, and I know that even if I posted something about white people trying to touch my hair, like, or whatever, and then you always have that white person that's your friend that comes in. Well, we used to have a thing when where we were, had our rollers set and we wouldn't let anybody. I'm like, bitch, please get off my freaking friend.
Right.
Not what I'm talking about. And, good for you. Of course, nobody wants you to touch your hair. You come straight out the hairdresser, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like being a zoo animal or treated like a pet.
Right.
It's a completely different thing. That curiosity. And as I said, if you didn't get that at camp, I'm lucky. Because, I hadn't been that up and close and personal. I didn't know white people's hair was greasy in the morning if they didn't wash it the night before.
Mhm.
Maybe not everybody is like that, but, some of the girls, they taught us, well, we have to wash our hair every day if we don't. And we were like, well, we got to grease our scalps, this is Phil. So I think that was cool. Maybe we need more of that somehow.
Mhm.
And the adult version, as I said, I'm not the person to facilitate that. Angela, thanks for putting that together. That 21 day.
Yeah. I guess I am in a certain way. Um, I'm, we had this racial equity challenge and we had two check-ins, and I was ready. I was prepared for like anything, like I'm good, you can say anything. And I was a little disappointed. Nobody said anything crazy or asked me any crazy questions. I was really disappointed. I was like, damn, I want to,
Well,
I
what
know I shouldn't be, but
feedback were you
like
getting?
that's what I set myself up for it. I
Yeah.
was waiting for like somebody to say something, but I mean, not in a bad way, like I was ready to pounce, but I was just ready to address it.
Right.
Um, but they didn't. So, okay. I mean, I don't know. I gave you your chance. So
Yeah.
now it's
But
too late. So don't approach me about anything crazy now.
right. But I mean, like, I think that's the thing. It's like, because Adrian, you bring up a good point. It's like, how can we have this type of exchange? Because like, curiosity is going to be there. I, I don't like it, but like, I was talking to a professor of mine a few years ago. She's also a black woman who's a professor at Auburn, where I went to school, and she was like, I just don't really understand why white people want to say the N word. Because we were talking about like the use of the N word. Um, on campus, and she was like, I just don't really get why it seems like a fetish almost that they just want to be able to say it sometimes. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm not someone who's like I don't really say the N word that much. Like, I guess it depends on which friends I'm hanging out with. Um, but I'm also not gonna let like a white person say it around me. But I guess like the thing is, like, if you're a white person and you want to understand why you cannot say the N word, or why it's offensive to say the N word, don't just come up to me as someone you don't know. We better have a good relationship. You know what I mean? Like, before you ask that question, because
just
like,
just randomly walk up to you and just be like, so let's talk about the N word now.
how about that has happened to me in this country?
Oh my
That has
God.
happened to me in this country. I was in Regensburg visiting a friend of mine. He's also black. He's from Philly. We were Fulbright scholars our first year here. And he was studying in Regensburg, and we went out to a club one night. We were leaving the club, it's these two black guys walking down the streets like 3 or 4 in the morning. And this group of white German kids, probably like 17, 18 years old, stop us, and they're like, oh my God, like, hey, are you guys from the US? We're like, yeah, we're from the US. And like, we're already like kind of tired. And my friend Ivan has like no patience for like dumb people stopping him in the street for some. And these kids were like super drunk, and they're like, oh, we want to, like, I bet you all like rap music and play basketball, and like that's how we knew. We're like, they stopped us because we're black. Yeah, we're black. Yeah, we're the first black people they've seen in real life. Okay. And like, I was just like, I don't have time. I don't have patience for this. And they're like, no, 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 we want to talk to you. Like, can we talk to you about music and blah blah blah? And then one of them was like, yeah, I want to ask a question. And I was like, I know, I already know. I know what he's gonna ask.
Oh
And I
my
was like,
God.
dude, let's just go. And Ivan's like, I want to hit him. I'm like, no, Ivan, you can't hit this kid. Like, like, no, we're not, like, we're not hitting people. And I was like, no, but like, he's so dumb. Like, why can't I? And I'm like, I know, but like, no, you can't hit him. It's gonna hurt you worse than it hurts him. Um, And so he was like, yeah, like, what, how is it with the N word? Like, can we say the N word? Can we say blah blah blah? And I was like, no, no, like, and Ivan was like, I'm about to hit him, and I was like, dude, and like the kids' friends heard my friend Ivan saying that, and then they started like trying to calm the friend down because he wasn't mad, he was just super excited, like super giddy, and they were like, no, 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 like they're mad, like you can't ask him that, and he's like, no, but why not? Why not? Why can't I ask? I want to know. And I told him, I was like, look, only because I'm in this town for like one weekend, I'm gonna give you a quick 10-minute history lesson. This word was used to like harm our people and to dehumanize us. You can look up online, like on the internet, like how that was done. But like basically because of that, you don't have the right as a white person to just say this word. Like, no, just don't do it. And he's like, what? But like, what about all the rappers who say it? And blah blah blah. I'm like, look, if you have a group of black people who are okay with you saying it, I guess I can't stop you. But like, don't come up to just random people and just start saying this word. That's the best advice I can give you right now.
Wow. You
Yeah.
know what? I I think that okay, I have some definite views on the N word, and my view is we should all stop saying it. And because here's the thing, when you're so all these kids around the world, not just in Europe but everywhere, they're listening to rap music and they hear this music, and if you interpret what they're saying, they mean it, that how people are in rap music typically are saying it means like friend, buddy,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and they don't have the context to understand,
Mm-hmm.
we're just selling music to people, and it's just like, rap, and people love rap music. Like I said, I have some definite, feelings about this. Like, if you don't want people saying it, we've got to stop spreading it.
But then though, like, I don't know, like Angela, I see your point because I do see that point. Like, when we have it in music and we export our music, we export it without context, right?
Yeah.
Without a history lesson, right? But the thing is like that puts the burden, I feel like that just puts the burden on black people to police ourselves when white society should be giving this context. And a lot of people make an excuse for Germany, and this kind of goes back to what you were saying, Adrian. Like, we're tired of giving like excuses, or tired of giving passes. Because I've heard here a lot of people being like, "Well, we just don't have the same history with race as you have in the U.S., so that's the reason why we don't really talk about it, and things might seem more sensitive to you." And I'm like, "No, y'all have issues of race that exist here. Y'all have some of the same issues. They manifest differently, but they exist here, but y'all just won't do have the conversations."
I guess
And
they
so
don't
the
talk
context,
about colonization of Africa. They don't talk about that in Germany.
not as much, not so much. No, it's becoming like it's an emerging conversation, I would describe it as. But like the thing is I'm like, y'all should be having the conversation. Like y'all should, like, the extent to which they learn about the civil rights movement here is just kind of like, oh yeah, it's something that happened in the US, and that's when black people got the right to vote and blah blah blah, or like the right to do all this stuff and blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, that's true about like US history, and that's how it relates to US history, but there's also a relation to German history and race relations here in Germany and here in Europe, and y'all refuse to have that conversation. And I'm not going to police myself because y'all don't want to give yourselves context, or try and apply the lessons that we learned in the US to here. You know what I mean? And so that's something that, like, I see the point, but that's a frustration that I have for
Okay.
living here, in Europe.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I've said it before, I live in a fairyland,
Mm-hmm.
and people don't I've only had once where somebody walked up and wanted to touch my hair, and it was at the start of the COVID like lockdown last year. And it was mainly, and I was just more freaked out about, like, we're in a pandemic. Why are you coming near me?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not even that you're want to touch my hair. Like, step back, lady.
Right.
Like, I don't want to be that close to you. I didn't explain anything. I just basically told her to, like, don't come near me, and I got in my car and drove away. Like,
Right.
sorry, I don't have time for
Yeah.
helping you or teaching you or anything. I just don't want to be close to your contagious self. Um,
Mm-hmm.
who knows if she was actually contagious, but still. Um, Yeah. Wow. I have a rant? Um, I don't know. Now that I've listened to both of you guys' rants.
Not have a rant, Angela.
I
Please.
know. I'm like, you
How
got
many
to.
rants do you have?
I know. Okay. Normally I do, but here's the thing. Like, I don't know. I've had last month was super. And this is just, what is this? Just the fifth? Nothing too bad has happened. And I mean,
It's about Black people rant, period, not how your year is going. Like that microaggression thing has nothing to do with 2021. What's
yeah,
happening
Mhm.
in 2021 is that I'm not taking it anymore. I'm nipping it in the bud. And you'll be like, nope, not
I,
today.
I
That's
don't
all.
know. I think maybe I'm too tall for people to like in under normal circumstances to say dumb shit to me. Like, no,
I
really.
wish.
I'm like, you
How tall
know,
are you, Angela?
you're small and cute, and so people feel like they can do whatever to you. um,
I
I
wonder if that's part of it. But then Ben said no. People say stupid stuff to him too. So yeah.
yeah, I
But no,
can't believe
I
that.
do think there's a gendered aspect to it. I mean, I'm not trying to play myself as a victim because I'm a man. Like, I don't think that's the case. But I think people are more comfortable. Like I think people are like, yeah, perceiving that like, oh, like yeah, he's someone I can approach, blah blah blah. Like, there's this idea that black women are hysterical and will get mad easily and blah blah blah. So they might not really approach black women, but they'll be like, oh, like yeah, the black guy, like yeah, he's my brother. Oh my god, I can't tell you how many times people call me in the street, Bruder, 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 like Bruder is brother in German, and so like.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how many times people are like, "Oh, brother, brother, brother." I'm like, "Nah, fam." Like, I am not your brother. Like, we're not bros. I don't know you. Like, we don't know.
Okay.
Like,
All right. Well, I will. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too happy today. I don't know. I, I, there's okay, Adrian, I always have something to say about something. I know,
No, I'm
but
sitting here like, what is she talking about?
I know, like it's not that hard to get me fired up about something, but I I just want to talk about some random things, okay, at the
mhm,
moment. So I was listening to some podcast, I don't know. I can't even remember which one it was, and I heard about this show. It is a comedy show about slavery. And before y'all all get to
No, that made me want to laugh for some reason.
I'm really curious what this show is. Like,
okay, so I heard about it. So I told my husband, I said, okay, we have to watch this because I can't imagine that this is could be funny. It's a show called The Good Lord Bird, and it's a mini series. I think it
Oh,
was
you know what? I'm going to read the book. I just got that book. That's a book. I'm going to read.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's based on a book. It's 7 episodes, and it's about John Brown and him trying to free Black people and the circumstances around it. And I have to admit, it was a little humorous. In a lot of ways, it was a little dark. Okay, that it does say it's a dark comedy, but it was mildly, I would just say, check it out if you can. Yeah, the Good Lord Bird. Um, and just as the Good Lord Bird is an actual bird that somehow it looked like a raven to me, but it had like white wings and a dark body and something like that. Anyway, the bird gets killed in the first episode, so so we can see where it's supposed to be a bad omen when you kill one of these birds. It was, I don't know. I wish some of you guys have seen it. If you read the book, let me know what you think about the book. Um,
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how I heard about the book, but one thing that I do is I'm hooked on audiobooks now since it's been a year now. I think I've listened to 80 or so since the pandemic started. And
how
I don't
many?
80.
That's what I thought you said. I'm like, what? Oh my God. Okay.
I love audiobooks because you could do that when you're cooking, while you're doing
mhm.
other knitting. Um, when I have some time, just chores, or like even I can snatch 10 minutes, I can listen to it. and I borrow it from the DC Public Library.
Oh,
And so Americans Abroad, I recommend people keep your driver's license, a credit card, a bank account, and of course, your voter registration, but your library card. So I can get these books delivered to my tablet. And sometimes DC Public Library has different themes. And I don't know, for some, maybe that was a Black History Month theme book that they recommended. But I put it on my list of things to get. And I remember they delivered it, and I was like, oh, I'm not ready to read it, and it's coming back later. So that's interesting that you said that, because that was a book that I was going to read and had no idea what it was going to be about. And
yeah, it's basically um like John Brown's a real person and the circumstances are around it, but there's a lot of other fictional characters in this
where is that
also.
scary? What did you watch it on?
I watched it on a streaming site.
But okay, so who produced this?
Oh, you want all this information? I
But
don't.
I got it right now. It was
got it.
created by Ethan Hawke and Mark Richard. So Ethan Hawke is one of the starring actors.
Yeah, I think he's
And
John Brown.
yeah, he's John Brown in the series, but produced by a small company, I guess, small company, Bloomhouse Productions.
Can
I
you
never
see
heard
where
of that.
it airs?
It airs on Showtime.
Yeah,
Showtime.
okay, that's
That's it.
right. It was on Showtime.
Okay, so this is a Showtime. So people, if you got Showtime, check it out. Let Angela know what you think. I'm gonna try to read it. No spoiler alerts. No spoiler alerts, please.
Oh,
Mhm.
don't worry. I've only seen one episode. Yeah, I was, yeah, I had some other stuff to do last night, so I didn't watch that much TV. But it's interesting and it was kind of humorous. Um, the one thing I can say about it is that I don't know how accurate the portrayal of John Brown is in this, but he was a man very driven to free enslaved people. Like
Mhm.
for real. Like I don't know that much about John Brown, but I guess I will get to know more when I get more through the series.
Yeah. That's one of those things about shows like that, based on a real character. We don't know how much is fictionalized, but what you just said is that we do know John Brown literally gave his life to free
Yes.
both people. So it
Yes.
was interesting to learn more about him. He is a historical figure that I never really examined. It's kind of just like you, like this. Just he's just a legend. He's that name. Everybody knows that story. But I don't know. Ben, you may know his backstory. I have no idea.
I don't know much about his backstory. He's come up in quite a few of like my searches that I've done, just kind of looking up different abolitionists, and he, is one of the more, I guess, well-renowned abolitionists of the time. So, but I don't know much of his backstory. I haven't done that much researching on him specifically.
Yeah, but he was definitely down for the cause. Like
Hmm.
Well, I was
more.
gonna say he may go down as like one of the number one allies. Like we could do a show about who, like, people talk about being allies. He was really an ally.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? We should do a show about that. What does allyship really mean?
Yes, because
Mm.
for some people it means everything, and
Hmm.
for other people it's just like I'll wear a t-shirt, you
Hmm.
know. Um, but yeah,
Well,
definitely.
alike or something. And I think that allyship is something that I don't want it to just be a buzzword, you know. Um, and if people are really serious about it, because that's another thing, Angela, you're not pet peeving still, but I'm sick of
Sorry.
fake white feminist allies.
Hmm.
I'm through with them too. Um, and I don't know, like, I'm not calling out necessarily names of people, but your actions speak louder than words. But I'm sick of them. And I guess you know what? I'm sick of. I guess I'm sick of a lot of stuff, but that's because I'm in a comfortable place where I feel really comfortable. But I'm sick of, yeah, I said it. White feminists, allies. Sick of them. 'Cause
Hmm.
I work with a lot of them in different organizations, and I'm sick of absolutely each and every one of them. So,
Yeah,
I
I
hope.
Yeah.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think we had a Women's History Month webinar. I think it was Tuesday, and the author, the scholar that came, she was white, but but she was talking about women's suffrage, and she basically like just went into the level of racism that Katie Stanton and some of the other feminists had. And she was not, she was not their friend. Let's just put it that way. She was very harsh, a harsh critic of the level of racism in the suffragette movement.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, she sounds like an ally. This scholar that presented, she sounds like a true ally because you have to look at, just like you said, Ben was saying, like all our heroes, none of them are perfect. We have to.
Mhm.
So when you make them heroes, then it's difficult to go back and look at them as real people and examine their shortcomings. So that was brave of this woman, I guess. And that's the other thing. I don't want to call. I'm sick of, like, we have to reward and call white people brave or this because you're coming reconciling with your white privilege, or it's like, is that brave? I guess it takes bravery. Do we have to reward people for doing the right thing? Is that brave?
well, you know what? I mean, I'm gonna be like the anti bitchy person. I'm like rainbows, sunshine, flowers. No, I don't know that we have to praise people for being an ally, but I don't know. We should be. I don't know. It's like you don't want to praise people for just being a human, but since there's so much inhumanity around, there has to be some kind of middle ground. Am I being
I
too
don't know.
moderate?
Like, I feel like, look, being an ally is not brave. Um, I'm sorry. And I say this not just as a black person, like talking to white people, but I say this also like as a man and as a straight man, understanding that I have those privileges. I have the cis male like privilege, and like for someone like I would never be like, oh my god, I'm so brave. Like I am LGBT friendly and I support LGBT people, and like to say that in a boardroom is brave. Like no, it's just basic humanity. Like
Yes.
I shouldn't get brownie points for that, And so when it comes to race, like that, it's the same thing. Like being an ally, regardless of what the identity you're allying with, is not something that I think is brave and should earn you brownie points. I do appreciate that, and I do try and acknowledge my allies, but like that doesn't necessarily mean like I'm gonna be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for speaking out about like racism, or oh my gosh, thank you so much for speaking out about this thing or that thing, Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna thank you for doing what you should be doing.
Yeah, I know what
Um,
you mean. You know what? I don't like the word ally
mhm.
because, especially when it comes to racism, okay, because, you know, Black people are just people. Asian people are just people. Hispanic people are just people. So if you're siding with with us, so to speak, then you're just being a human,
Mhm.
like a real human, not like a fake brainwashed one. So
Right. I
I don't
mean,
know.
like you would think that this concept of allyship would not need to exist, right?
Yeah.
Like we are all just human. To be an ally, like how I would define it, just means recognizing the humanity in other people and
That's right.
like making sure that you're doing the work to make sure that other people recognize that humanity and respect that humanity in other people. You would think we would not need this concept, but apparently we do. But like to answer your question, Adrian, like yeah, I think I'm with you on that too. Like there's like I talk about this with a lot of my friends right now because most of my friend group is white, and like I am not a woman, but I do benefit from feminism as a man, and I wish that more men would understand that they benefit from feminism as well. Feminism is not something that exists to spite men; it's something that exists to make everyone on an equal playing field. Um, but like I really get frustrated with white feminism a lot, and this like kind of type of feminism that's not intersectional and doesn't understand that like different women from different groups, like race groups, and have different experiences, and that is one of like the criticisms of like kind of mainstream feminism. Is that like it's not intersectional, and it doesn't really understand the differences that exist between white women and like women of color. And so yeah, like I see that point too. One of the things that I have been kind of quiet about, and I'm gonna have a whole other community of people coming after me, and that's okay. That's fine. I'm willing to like, you know what, like at me in the mentions if you need to. But like after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, you know, there was so much hailing of this woman as like, you know, she's this champion of women's rights and like she did so much for the court and she was like this liberal progressive like you know, like lost, like we lost this liberal progressive light on the court. And I'm like, she was a champion of white women's rights. When it came to indigenous and Native American people, she was not very nice to those people and to other women of color. And she had a decent like record when it came to immigration, but like very much when it came to indigenous rights, she was not very, she doesn't have a very good record. And so I'm not gonna sit here and just like let people go off about her record as being this like, you know, feminist icon and not bring up the harm that she has caused to indigenous women and indigenous communities, you know, and so and Native American communities. And so I don't, you know, like I'm not here for that. I think, you know, that's what I want to say is like I'm also not here for that, Adrian. Like I'm not here to sit here and just like prop up people's legacies because, you know, even when they are liberal progressive legacies, because they fit the they make the liberal progressive narrative look good if it's not intersectional, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know about her record with Native First Nations. That's interesting because she is an icon of, you know, I did feel devastated when we lost her seat on the court because I knew it wasn't going to be replaced, you know, with anyone
Mm-hmm.
that would at least honor any type of legacy that she had for anything decent. Um, but that's interesting, and that ties back to your whole thing about Messiah figures. You know, how dare you talk about, you know, Justice Ginsburg? You know, like
Right.
that, doing something, revering someone so well does make it seem like you're the anti whatever if you're gonna even mention a shortcoming. Um, but I guess that's one thing that I don't like necessarily about well, I can't say that I don't that well, I don't know. It's hard, and I'm glad I'm not necessarily a role model. I guess everybody's a role model, and then no one
Mm-hmm.
have to be forced to be a role model, you know, because you know my name type of thing. But I guess that that's just part of it because Ben, you know, we hold you up as one of our young and best and brightest. You know, we putting pressure on you. Should we not be saying that? You know, and I just learned that you're a Fulbright scholar. Hey, I didn't know that. Uh,
Yeah. You know, that's the thing. It's like I want to be clear. Like I like when I use Ruth Bader Ginsburg as an example. I'm not trying to take away the fact that this woman did do some amazing things and has a really great legacy, but her legacy also has some dark parts to it. And so I think that's the thing. Is like I want us to be able to be honest and understand the full story of people rather than just like pick and choose what makes for a good narrative. You know, what makes for a good hero narrative, because that's what happens basically when we put these people on pedestals and when we put these people as like messiahs and saviors, is we end up picking and choosing the facts about their lives that fit that model and then kind of ignoring the things that don't. Because even with Beyonce, I know I'm pissing off the beehive again, but she's done some things in her past that haven't been so great, you know. And the other members of Destiny's Child have talked about that and have been criticized for talking about that, you know. And I'm like, well, that was their experience too, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just we got to stop doing that because it ends up making us write histories that are not accurate to what actually happened, you know.
Yes, that is true. Okay, so here's my sort of thing is that we've got to stop idolizing people. Like it's just ridiculous. Like all these people are just people and they're doing some good things and they're doing some bad things. And when a person does something bad, we have to say something about it because how else will they be able to change if we can't identify, you know, hey, this wasn't good. Okay, in the case of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, not really going to help her if we identify it at this point. I mean, we can
Mm-hmm.
still identify it because it'll help other people, but it won't help her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel too positive. I'm sorry.
It's
I've
okay.
let you down. I can
No.
normally go off on a thousand things, but I don't know. This week has been it's I don't know. It's just been okay, and I haven't read that much news. I haven't spent that much time on social media. I've limited a lot of whatever because I've had other things, non computer things to do this week. So I don't know. Maybe that's like a hint. Like we should all stay off the internet. I don't know.
I mean, there's probably some truth to
Like
that.
if no, really, I realized I hadn't been really reading the news this week, and it's kind of changing my perspective. I've got to get back on it. Oh, did you win your election?
I did, yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, I did win my election, so I'm now the vice chair of my Cologne Bonn chapter of Democrats
Awesome.
Abroad.
Who's the chair?
Congratulations. And it's so funny to me because you were like, yeah, I'm running for vice president or whatever. And I was like, vice chair. So good. So you was it unanimous? You said you were uncontested.
Yeah, yeah, I was uncontested, so you know,
That's the best way to
it's
win.
yeah, it's a technical win, but a technical win is still a win.
It's a win. Like a win is a win. When I
Right.
ran for communications coordinator the first time, there were three people and me that ran for it. And so I beat three people. And then the second time I was uncontested. And I was okay with that. Like,
Mhm.
I
you
can't
know,
believe you run for communications. You guys are big time in Germany.
I
Because
don't know.
get a volunteer to put her hand up, but you have to run for communications. That's wow.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
guys are huge.
yeah, it's an electrical, it's an elected position.
position, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's an elected position. Oh, yeah. But so, and this time I'm running for a DPCA rep,
Right.
which is an important role, but it's not. I still want to be involved with Democrats Abroad Germany, but I just need to take a little step back,
Hmm.
from that. I've spent 4 years in an elected position, in a position that requires something to be done every day, literally every day, like for the past 4 years. My husband told me, he's like, yeah, you really need a break. We went on vacation, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and I mean, yeah, I still had to do stuff even though I wasn't there, so I need to take a step back from like something that requires daily maintenance. But I'm
Hmm.
so proud of you, Ben. Congratulations. I'm glad you won.
Thank you.
Hopefully I will win my election too.
Mhm.
Um,
I need to ask about that. Like, how does the DCPA, right? How many of those get elected? Because I see like so many candidates for that. And is this something that there will be multiple of these
it's
positions?
it's there. So the chair and the vice chair have two
Mhm.
of the seats, and then there's 13 left in Germany. So
Okay.
it depends on the size of your country committee and also how many people voted in the global primary. So we did really well. So we have 13 positions, and they have to be alternately male, female.
Right.
So I'm not sure how that's going to work out with 13.
Hmm.
What's the distribution? So yeah, you have to vote. You get to vote for a lot of people for that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, we're pretty much. I think there might be one or two extra people.
Okay.
Like, so it's not, it's not like set in stone if you apply, run for it. But yeah,
Right.
we'll see. Hopefully people will like me. Um
Well, when you get your website up, I will share it and say that you got my support. So.
okay, good. Yeah, I'm always worried about these sort of electoral things. I never know
Mhm.
who will like me or not like me. There's no reason not to like me. I mean, that
No.
Can we
that
segue
people would know about.
segue this to something you guys brought up before about being black and Democrats abroad? What we were
Hmm.
something.
Oh,
Yeah, I think we should talk about that. Like,
yeah.
if nothing else, I think we should talk about that because I feel like this the Democratic Party as a party is a white institution. It was founded as a white institution. And up until the mid 20th century, it was very much against the it was very much against our people, as an institution. And I don't know, I feel like it is a bit difficult sometimes to be Black and Democrats abroad or in the Democratic Party. I don't know if y'all feel the same way, but sometimes I feel like people around me say stuff or have ideas, and I'm like, that ain't it, Chief. That's just not it, you know. So yeah, I want to have this conversation.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to say that okay, so 4 years ago, I got involved with Democrats Abroad, and believe me, we've made some big strides. Like there are way more Black people and other people of color involved now than there were
Mhm.
4 years ago. Um, I mean, I was, yeah, yeah, it's definitely a lot more than there were before. I don't know if it's better. Um, why don't you tell me your experience, Ben? Because I don't know.
I mean, in my experience, it's like I have not experienced anyone being like explicitly racist and Democrats abroad, but I think what I have experienced is every now and then there will be discussions or talks about stuff that just kind of shows the different privilege that people have, you know, when it comes to race issues. One of the things that I think kind of gets under my skin a little bit, and it is a bit connected to what I was talking about earlier in terms of like putting things on pedestals and idolizing things, is like how people talk about like life here in Germany. And a lot of the people that I interact with and Democrats abroad, the vast majority are white. And they talk about like how, you know, like, oh, there's so much stuff that we have here in Germany that we need to take back to the United States. And, you know, there's so much stuff that America needs to learn from Germany. And, you know, like if they could just do this the German way. And I'm like, actually, my experience with these things in Germany has not been very great, or has not been as like rosy as you all are making it out to be. And I'm pretty sure that that has to do with the level of privilege that you all have based on our race and also socioeconomic class
Mm.
too, you know. And for you all to kind of talk about these things in such rosy, you know, like narratives, like as if there's nothing wrong with it here in Germany, to me I'm just kind of like, no, like, I mean, I'm not. One of the things that we talk about often is like healthcare, and like so many DA people are always like, yeah, like, you know, like America needs like the German healthcare model. And I tell people that Germany has done a really good job of making sure that more people have access to affordable health insurance than in the US, but the quality of healthcare is not necessarily as well or the quality of healthcare is not necessarily better here. And also there are people who fall through the cracks here. You know, there are people who experience homelessness or who experience joblessness, who end up losing their health care and have a difficult time getting back into the healthcare, because if you for some reason get out of the public healthcare system here, for those of you who don't know, Germany has like a dual system, a public and a private healthcare system. The vast majority of people are in the public system, and then like if you make a lot of money, you can go into the private system. But once you leave the public system for some reason, it's really difficult to get back into it. And so you can actually kind of fall into this crack in Germany where you can go without health insurance and then be penalized for not having health insurance. You
Mm.
know, let's say you have like a really good job for some years and you lose that job, then it's really difficult to get back into the public health insurance. Um, and so these types of things, you know, and also like my experience, like I've had a few medical issues here, and like my experience going through navigating the healthcare systems as a patient hasn't always been very great. And I know like I have felt this kind of like racialized tension between me and some of my doctors, where they're not taking my pain seriously. They're not taking me seriously when I tell them, you know, this happened or that happened. And I don't think that they would do that if I were white, you know. Or there's been times where I've brought like a friend with me to be a helper to help translate stuff, and they're like, oh no, you can't bring another person with you, you know, like
Why?
you just because I don't, well, most recently because of COVID. Like I actually had that happen like last week because of COVID. But even before COVID, there have been times where like, oh no, you can't bring anyone else with you, like we only have space for one person, or we only allow the patient back here, or like they just wouldn't even wait. Like there was once where I was in the hospital and I was like, hey, can the doctor wait until like my friend comes here? She's on her way. It'll be about half an hour. They're like, no, the doctor doesn't have time. Then they only have time right now, so they're gonna talk to you right now. And it's like what? Or like I go to therapy as well. I do like psychotherapy because I have like anxiety issues, and like I was trying to find an English speaking therapist in Cologne because I was like, it doesn't help me to do therapy in German because I can't be as expressive in German as I can in
Right.
English. And so I had someone like a therapist reach out to me who's a friend of, or who's a therapist for a friend that I have. And she's like, yeah, like I normally only do private, but I would actually be willing to do a contract with your public insurance. You just need to contact them first and like ask them about it and ask if they'll make the exception. And then I'll do a contract with them. So I sent an email to my public insurance company, and they basically sent me an email back saying, no, we won't do this, like we won't pay for private therapy, and just so you know, you don't have a right to have therapy in any other language than German. And I'm like, are you serious? Then like what is the point? I'm a patient who doesn't speak, like yeah, like I'm not going to get into the conversation about what language you should speak when you live in a certain country, because it's not the fact that I don't speak German. I speak German, I speak it very well, but I can't be as expressive for myself. It doesn't help me, it doesn't solve my problems. If I'm going to therapy to be able to deal with certain problems, it doesn't help me to be able to go there and not be able to communicate and be as expressive as possible. um but like these types of issues that I see, and I see among like communities of color as well, like not just myself as an American, but also like other communities of color of like different immigrants who come from different places. And so when people in DA talk about like how great Germany is and all these things, or like even talking about like policing, like I've heard people in DA talk about how great like it is that there's not a lot of like police violence and like guns and stuff like here.
Mm,
There is, though. We just don't hear about it here because
yeah.
the society is not willing to have the conversation. And so when these conversations, I feel like the conversations even in DA are not as intersectional as they should be, because people don't see that the bubble that they live in here, for the vast majority of them as white Americans living in Germany, is a very, very like privileged bubble.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I think that, yeah, the police in Germany are 1,000 times better than America, but they still have problems.
Hmm.
They still have problems. They still abuse people,
Right.
and yeah, yeah, I see your point. Um,
And
yeah.
I don't even know if they're 1,000 times better than the US. I mean, there are some structural differences about policing here that make it seem better than what it is in the US, and in some ways can be. But like, there has been this debate in the last few years about like white nationalism, and white supremacy existing, like this kind of culture of white supremacy existing in the like state police
Yes.
forces here in Germany.
Yes.
And the government refuses to even allow research to be done about this, even though every year there's at least like 5 or 6 cases where there's like a cell of police officers who get caught with like on a WhatsApp group making racist comments about people that they've detained or arrested here in Germany, and talking about how these the blacks or the Arabs, or whatever group, making fun of them and stuff about how they got to rough them up, or beat them up, or like arrest them for something. And so I'm like, no, no, the racism exists here. It doesn't manifest the same way, but it definitely exists here. And so that's the thing. It's like I think that there's a lot of privilege that exists in DA that isn't seen, because of DA being a very white institution still.
Yeah. Yeah. That is true. Hmm. Well, we're gonna have to do something about that, Ben. Since
Yeah, we
we
will.
hopefully we have actually, I think now we have a whole lot of black leaders in Democrats Abroad Germany.
Diversity and Inclusion Committee, or is
Say
it?
again.
I said I think Angela's on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee or task force, or
Yes, yes, I am.
so you know, if
And
you have one of those, you have a problem because you don't know
well,
one.
that is true. That is
Right.
true. If you're
And
having
you want
any issues, just email inclusion@democratsabroad.org. Hopefully, in the next few weeks, we're going to have a place up on the website so that people can more easily contact us, and also so that we can help more people like work out these issues that they're having, because there are some people that are having real issues.
Mm.
Not everything is. Democrats Abroad is a great organization, but there are some people that need counseling. Let's
Mm.
just leave it at that. I don't want to air all of our dirty laundry on this podcast, but there's a lot of things that could be done. And hopefully with this diversity and inclusion committee, we'll be able to make some changes um, that will make it easier for people of color to be involved. Um, because sometimes white people make things hard. Like they don't even realize they're making it hard, but they are.
Well, one thing
Um,
about Democrats Abroad, we are aspirational, that's for sure, and have caucuses and councils. Well, I guess there are caucuses that reflect our membership, and there's a constant in a volunteer organization. There's a constant need for volunteers. I don't know what's happening to anybody at their local level if they feel like maybe they're experiencing racism or sexism or ageism or excluded because maybe they're new. But there's all those opportunities at the global level. As Angela said, there's you can contact the diversity committee if you feel like you're happening something unfair is happening to you locally. Um, and the chapter, the dynamics, Democrats abroad, it's a, I don't even know if you can say there's one. It's so varied because it's made up of I don't know how many, 100 something, 40 something different country committees, and my experience in my local chapter may not be how the the experience I would have if I was working on the country's executive committee, and then definitely on a global committee, and then if I had to deal with the Democrats abroad executive committee. But we do know that this current executive committee wants a culture of inclusion and diversity, thus the committee and thus the training that's been going on and how it's going to move forward. But yeah, I've had weird stuff happen to me before. And then I've had
Me
stuff where
too.
people are like, yeah, like what was it, 2006? When did I run for DNC? Anyway, I was basically asked because they were like, our DNC Democratic National Committee looks too white and too male and doesn't look like Democrats abroad. So they were like, it needs to be more representative. So some people were aware of it. Then I can't remember. Okay, 2012. That was 2012. That um, it, I was asked to run, and I think a Latino, and we had an LGBT person on the DNC before. But anyway, people were saying that no, this isn't representative of who we are. And one thing about Democrats abroad, though, it's like, okay, you can join the Black Caucus. You don't have to be Black, but I don't think we have a demographic? Do we know how many Asian Americans, or for example, I think we give people the option to identify.
No, actually, we do not. This is. I don't know if that should change or not. That we identify so that we can get a good handle on. You know, Identifying people by race is a two-edged sword. You
Right, but I
know,
think that you can because I think that's how you automatically get put in the Black Caucus, or
no,
no?
you don't. Nobody gets automatically put in anything. So everybody has to choose for
Well, actually,
themselves.
you get, not well. Just to clarify, if you when you join Democrats abroad, you will automatically get placed with your country committee if one.
That's right.
But then anything more than that, like Angela was saying, if you want to join a caucus or a
Yeah.
committee, that's your choice. But
Yeah.
you will get geographically placed, and then you will get placed on the list of people that get emails from your state, like a special election coming up. Those are the only two ways I think we really identify people.
Yes. Otherwise, we don't have any way to know whether people are, what their race is or their sexual orientation or, any disabilities. I don't know if we need to start doing that, marking it down, just so we can get an idea, so we can better serve our membership or what. I don't know. Um, I just know that if you're going to have some kind of a weird problem, it's going to be with your country committee. Like, it's not, I've, from my experience, is that at the regional and international level, that all the people are incredibly professional and are not trying to do things to keep you from being a part of the organization. And I'm not even going to tell the story of when I first got involved with DA, like how much trouble I had. Um, and I don't know whether it was racism or sexism or a combination of the both, because, sometimes as a woman, people just assume all sorts of things about you. It doesn't matter whether you're black or white, but if you're a black woman, they make a lot of assumptions for some reason. And yeah, and one of those is about your level of education also, which I don't understand, like why. I would say that the majority of the people that belong to Democrats abroad are fairly well educated.
Well,
Like,
what's your comment about sometimes you say you feel too black or
oh, it's just things
some?
like we had a Obama birthday party for his birthday. I don't know, it was in 2019. And I thought, okay, somebody brought like a boombox of some sort, and they put on some music, and I was like, okay, let's dance. And then all the black people looked at me like, no, we're not dancing with these white people around. And I'm thinking, I don't care. Like, I want to dance, like it's a party, like let's play some music and dance, like. And I know that that's, a lot of people feel uncomfortable about something like that, but I don't, white people
Ben
dance
gave,
too.
Ben gave an example about not being able to be black growing up in the suburbs or dialing it down some. Like, how did you
Mhm.
say? So maybe some people feel like we have to. Well, we know that we have white speak at work. We talk differently. To our colleagues, we behave. Especially if you're in a corporate environment, you're going to behave differently at work. You don't want to be that. Whatever. So maybe some people think within Democrats abroad they have to act a certain way in front of leaders. Or
Yeah, I know, but I'm not one of those people. Like, you know like how I am, it's kind of how I am. Like, I might dress it up a little bit if I was in a corporate environment, but I'm pretty much the same, and if we were at a corporate function, and I mean, my husband has a corporate function, or at least that we did before COVID, a Christmas party, a holiday party every year, and like, I want to dance. So they have a DJ and a dance floor. So I'm just assuming they want you to dance, like it's
Right.
not there for good looks. And yeah, I don't know. I don't
But
know.
I mean,
But
like, I do get that feeling sometimes, like, and I don't think it's intentional. I think it's just, you know, a few episodes ago, I talked about how like white people should not police how black people like express and deal with our oppression, right? And I do get that feeling a lot of times, like when it comes to not just Democrats abroad, but when I am working in white institutions, it's like when I experience racism or when I want to talk about racism, there's like kind of like an outline of how they're comfortable with it being talked about. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
and to go outside of that outline makes everyone uncomfortable, and so they would rather you not do that. And I do kind of get that feeling about Democrats abroad, like in general as an organization, not so much for like my specific like
chapter.
chapter, but like just as an organization, or at least sometimes I get the feeling like they don't really know what that outline should be, right? And so then sometimes Democrats abroad, the organization, is kind of hesitant to do anything or to say anything because they're like, well, what, I don't know. We don't want to ruffle feathers. And I'm like, look, I'm not here to like we if we ruffle feathers, we ruffle feathers. We're gonna call out racism and call out um, anti-blackness when we see it. And there have been times where like I kind of stepped up and said like, hey, like I want to say this, or I think that this should be said, or we should make a statement about this. And luckily for me, like that has been taken positively, and people were supportive of those times. But sometimes like seeing the hesitation of people, it's just been like, why for me, like as a black person, like last year and the fallout after George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor, I'm just kind of like, why are we hesitating? we should be like yelling everything that we can from the bottom of our hearts to get the message out there. And I think that's how I kind of engage with, or like how I feel this sometimes too, that like DA doesn't really know how to engage with like, or DA is such a wide institution that they don't always know what to do, and so there's a lot of hesitation sometimes.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
true. That's true. The statement that we made, I didn't like protest or anything like that. The statement that the global XCOM made,
mhm,
I told them it could be stronger. Like
mhm.
people, everyone was, but sometimes people are afraid, you know, like they're really just afraid that something, that they're going to say something or do something, but that's going to anger a lot of people. And I
But
think that we're going to change that.
But that's the thing. I'm like, who are you afraid of angering? You know, like if you make an anti-racist statement that's very strong, that has teeth to it, who are you afraid of angering? Are you afraid of angering black people or people of color? You're probably not going to. Are you afraid of angering, you know, like white people who don't see themselves as racist, who, you know,
Yes.
you know, kind of like the liberal? Well, then, like, if they get angry, then they get angry. Like, I'm not here to soothe their feelings. You know?
Well, that is true. I think that yeah, last year people were just afraid of a lot of things. But nonetheless, that's why we're doing training. Now that you're a part of leadership, you will be involved in our diversity and inclusion training. Um, we've had 2 sessions with some professional trainers that's what they do. They teach diversity and inclusion, and we're going to do 2 more with this same company. And then after that, we're going to switch to an online course. Plus, we're actually going to add the racial equity challenge. Someone asked the question in our EMEA regional meeting on Thursday, Wednesday. It was on Wednesday, that what are we going to do about our members? And so I got a really great suggestion that we should use the racial equity challenge for our members to try to get them some. And believe me, there's a lot of people. I got an email from somebody. Okay, I'm ready for some real like hostile talk or whatever. um I got an email from a leader in Democrats Abroad saying that they were going to come to my check-in meeting for this racial equity challenge so that they could be the devil's advocate, and and because they don't believe that we should be talking about racism and sexism and all this stuff as much as we do, and that if we want to have a unified country, we have to talk about it less. This is nonsense. Like
Yeah,
you
get out of
do.
here with that trash. Like,
Yeah, you
I'm
don't you
sorry.
don't get unity from everybody just sitting quietly and pretending like nothing is happening. That
Right,
is.
and you don't get unity without justice, without holding people accountable. Like I'm like you know what I mean? Like how can
Yes.
you cannot have unity without holding people accountable and creating justice for the wrongs.
That's
Period.
right.
Like I'm so tired of white people telling you, well, you know, you just need to stand, you just need to get by and support each other, and like we just need to come together. We need to put everything behind us. Like, nah, fam, we didn't account for what you need to come to me and tell me everything that was wrong before I can just sit here and be like, oh la di da, like let's have donuts and coffee together. Like, no, fam, like we need to have some a come to Jesus moment first.
Yes.
Like,
Yes, that is 100% correct. Like we have to, you can't move on. And this is part of the problem in the United States in
mhm,
general, is that we're always trying to move on from something, but sometimes you have to know what happened, account for what happened, and then sometimes people have to be punished.
yeah,
Like that is, and that's really, sometimes people just have to be punished. And
yeah,
then we can move on, I mean, because honestly, if somebody had stolen a car, we wouldn't be like, well, I got my car back, so let's just move on.
yeah,
We're more interested in America in punishing people for property uh, crimes than we are for crimes of 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 our souls and spirits, you
Hmm.
know? I
Against
mean,
our people. Yeah.
yeah, really, that we,
Right.
and so sometimes we have to have accountability, and we can't continue to go on without ever addressing any of the problems. And I swear, oh, if I hear one more person ever say, well, nobody, I've never had any slaves, I
Hmm.
don't owe anybody anything, like that is just really just some nonsense. Like, come on,
Right.
you're benefiting from all the from slavery. There's still people benefiting from slavery.
Right.
They're still on Wall Street. You know, there's still companies that were a part of the slave trade, universities, all sorts of things that still exist that made their bones on
Hmm.
slavery.
It's funny to me how people want to like absolve themselves of the responsibility of the legacy of slavery, but yet they are not willing to absolve themselves of the legacies that their, that, or the fortunes that their forefathers left for them.
That's
You know,
right.
when you talk to somebody about like, for example, the quote unquote death tax, the estate tax, they're like, why should I be responsible? Like my family left me this, and I shouldn't have to pay taxes on this. Like this is I am entitled to this because my grandfather left me this, blah blah blah. Like, well, your grandfather also left you a legacy of slavery and whatnot, all of these things. How do you think that he built all this wealth? And like, oh well, that wasn't me. I'm not responsible for that. That was them back then. That was my great 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 grandfather. I'm like, no, you can't have one without the other, fam. If we want to talk about you being able to like hold on to your family's generational wealth, and I know this might seem like they're not connected, but they are. If we want to talk about people being able to hold on to generations and generations of wealth, what comes with that also the responsibility for how that wealth was gained, which in the US, the vast majority of it was off the backs of slaves, like.
Yeah.
Yes.
But even beyond that, and that's true, because even poor white people or whatever benefit from
Hmm.
white privilege. So it's the white
Hmm.
privilege that people have to realize that they have today, and then how do you use that privilege? But so yeah, it's easy to say, well, I did my family tree, no slaves. Yeah, well, you can't shake that white privilege.
Right.
Um, so I think the Democrats abroad is a very so huge and varied, and there are a lot of people that have a lot of privilege and a lot of money, and there are people like us that don't and have a
Hmm.
lot of passion. It's not to say that the people with money don't have passion as well. But it's going to be like, because we're a microcosm of society, we got everything. That's why we have so many caucuses. For example, because we have members from every state and territory, just about, and every spectrum in society, um, educated, not wealthy, not, you know. So we're big enough that we can have a space for everyone. I'm more worried about, as Angela said, what happens on the local level. And I guess I am encouraged when we have young people that want to be leaders at the local level. I think DA is good about that. Again, that comes country to country. Germany seems to be good about young leaders. I don't know how well you sustain them, because that's the other thing. We have to make sure we have an organization. We encourage people to be leaders, but then we have to sustain them and
Right.
give them the
Right.
tools that they need, because it's easier. It's a quote from what's a quote from Hamilton? Governing is well, winning is easy, governing is harder.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that is true. Winning is not necessarily easier either, but it's easier than governing,
And governing,
yes,
right?
because you
Yeah.
have to put up or shut up,
You
really,
have
at
to
that point.
constantly do work,
Yeah,
like, yeah.
yeah,
and Democrats
constantly.
will take every free minute that you have if you let it.
That is
Mm.
true. That is true. I Democrats Abroad is a good organization, but I mean, there are some things that we need to change, and we need to hopefully enlighten some people about some of the things that are happening in the world.
Right.
Because if you don't know, as long as you don't know, you can feign ignorance.
And
Right.
I can say I know that if we look at Democrats abroad as a state party, which we are, we're so far ahead of so many other state parties. When
Hmm.
I talk to my fellow DNC members, like for example, when we were electing delegates to the convention and the DNC members. We had an affirmative action committee to make sure that we were at least aware that we want to have a diverse delegation. We have these rules about gender balance. A colleague of mine in the California Democratic Party, he was like, when we put up our electors, it's just a list of names. He's like, they can't, that's it. He's like, no bios, no pictures. We don't know who it's just a list of names. He's like, you guys are so much better. He was in awe when I gave him the link to our election website. Um, so, and that's good. And I say that to say that we should be proud, but also to say that we can continue to push ourselves further, but to let us know that we're ahead of a lot of parties. So I don't know if that's a scary thing or kudos to us, but I think it has something to do with, talk about diverse. We're so diverse. We're the only, California's huge, but we're the only state party working in, I don't know how many different time zones. And we're the only state party that, that votes in every election. So
Right.
I think we're idealistic and aspirational, which is a wonderful thing. We're not complacent. That's for sure.
Right.
Well,
Which is like something I do want to highlight. Like I don't want people to think that I'm just like harping like and like kind of trying to knock down Democrats abroad. Obviously, I just ran for an election and became the vice chair of a chapter of this organization. And I think that this organization has a lot of potential and is on a very good trajectory. I think my issue is just I don't want us having this knowledge that the Democrats abroad is a very like progress or is an organization that is progressing and moving in the right direction and is ahead in a lot of ways to allow us to get complacent in that, because I think when that happens, then we stop looking at the places where we stop looking for ways that we can do better. And I
yes.
think that's really the ultimate point that I want to have about Democrats abroad, that there are a lot of opportunities for improvement, even though we are doing really good.
But
Yeah.
what inspired you to run for leadership?
Um, I think one, like I wanted to be able to like use Democrats abroad as a way to kind of do some anti-racist activism. And I felt like that should be like part of what Democrats abroad like does in general, like I think that that's what both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party should be doing, but the state of the Republican Party right now is not going to allow that to happen.
No.
But I really felt like, okay, well, like this is an issue that obviously I care about. I would like to be able to use the resources that exist within this institution to kind of help me like be this activist and see if there are other people who want to do this type of activist work. And I found like that there was in my chapter people who really did want to do these types of stuff. They just didn't really know what to do or how to get started. And so I was like, okay, and not just in my chapter, but in a few different chapters. And so I was like, okay, well then I think I'm just gonna run for this position so that I'll be able to like have a bit more of a wider network and be able to kind of tap into like the networks that the Democrats abroad has to bring more of an activist kind of dimension to my chapter's work and hopefully like other chapters as well as we're participating and cooperating with each other.
Wow, this is going to be a great year for Democrats abroad. I'm so proud of you. Um, yeah, I know I probably say that so much. You're like, yeah, whatever, Angela, but I am.
No, it really means something. Thank you.
Yeah, like really. Yeah, thank you for running. And I know you're going to make a big difference in Democrats abroad Germany and Democrats abroad overall. Like, really, every time, in a way, I feel like we're the Borg,
Mhm.
that we're adding your distinctiveness to our collective. No.
I
and
feel
im-
honored every time to be here.
yeah, and that we're to improve us, I mean, that's what's so great to me about Democrats abroad is that literally every person that contributes can make a big difference in a super positive way. And that's what's amazing for me. And sometimes when I think about all the people working and especially during the election, everybody's doing something to get at, so that we can get more people to vote and we can win. like
Mm-hmm.
it makes me super emotional. And I know that it's, I don't know if it's just because I've been in the house for too long that I'm so like everything is like, but it does. It's like it makes me feel so full of pride and energy, like because
Mm-hmm.
they're doing it. So I have to be better, like
Right.
I have to be my best self and help too. And that's something that you're not going to get in a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get that. Um, yeah. Well, I guess we've been on here for quite some time.
Right. Yeah. But I think that's a good note to leave off of. Like I do feel very motivated, and I do feel very yeah, just
Yeah.
ready to kind of hit the ground running, and I feel like I do have a community inside of GA. We're gonna do some great things over the next couple of years.
Yes. Yes, we are. And definitely next year, 2022, it's an election year, and we can't let the Republicans win the House or the Senate back.
Right. Oh yeah.
So, yeah, that's, I mean, I don't want to
Absolutely.
bring everything back to voting, but
Voting's the first step, guys. Voting is the first step. Like, yeah, there's a lot more work that we need to do, but voting is the first thing. So
yeah,
keep 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 looking at all the things going on, keep track of your local elections, your state level elections, and keep track of what Democrats abroad is doing, so that we can prepare for 2022, because 2022 is going to be just as important as 2020.
that's right. It's actually more important in a
Mm-hmm.
way. Like we won the battle, but we haven't won the war yet. So
Right.
we have to keep going. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, thank you so much, Ben. As always, we'll be in touch, and yeah, everybody have a great day, weekend, hour, whenever you're listening to this, and
Right.
remember, we're here with you, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. See you next time.